Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. Kicking off the show with the big news out on the West Coast, the Cranston National Budlong Little League girls under 14 softball team is in the World Series. They're about to play Texas. And I've got Coach Richard Berry here. Thanks for joining us, Richard.
Hey, thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Of course, you know, they are the girls of summer. We are rooting for them back here. A win over Italy. Tough game against Utah yesterday, and now we're focusing on Texas. So talk with us about the World Series experience so far for this team.
This has been an experience that these girls will never forget. I mean, they're having so much fun out here. They're meeting all the girls from all the different countries. They're making a lot of friends, and it's been a great, great experience.
So break down the first two games for us a little bit. It was an exciting win. It was a tough loss. Talk with us about the split.
Yeah, so I mean, the first game against Italy, it was basically 1-1 going into the fifth. They went ahead 2-1, and then we came back in the bottom, and we got those 2 runs that we needed to come back and win the game.
And how was yesterday?
The Utah game,
yeah,
yesterday was the Utah game. That's another one that was in the fifth inning, 0-0. They went ahead 1-0. We had a couple miscues. We had some runners on base. We just didn't get those key hits, which today we're ready to hit that ball today. So
can you do us? We've got you there. We know we've got the sun in front of you. Can you give us a little look as to what it looks like to be at the World Series? If you want to turn that camera around.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll take a peek.
Okay, there they are getting ready. Out in Washington. The game starts, I believe, in 30 minutes. There they are, representing Cranston, ready to take on Texas. So, Coach, I'll have you...
We're getting ready for the game.
I'll have you turn it back around. What's the scouting report on Texas?
Scouting report is fast. They're a fast team. So we watched them yesterday, a couple leadoff batters. They're very, very, very fast. So we got to contain the bunt and get the ball out of the glove quick.
Okay, so I know you're getting ready, but give us a little shout out. Talk with us about some of the players who've been making the key plays, have been making things happen for the team.
Let me tell you, they all have been doing their part. I mean, pitching has been great. Ava Brandau, Josie DeTroya, our catching, our fielding, everything's been great. I got the crew that just actually came over and walked on over here. They see me on the camera, so they wanted to come over and say hello.
You guys are live back in downtown Providence. What do you want to say? We're rooting for you.
Let's go Providence Live right there, girls.
Oh, that's kind of awkward.
This one is.
Hey, girls. We wish you all the best. We know you're getting ready for Texas. Appreciate, Richard, you're taking the time to join us. Quick question.
Yeah.
With the game today, what does the outlook look like to move forward in the World Series?
So basically, we're in pool play right now. So we're 1-1 in pool play. We play Texas today. Hopefully, we'll be 2-1 after today, and then we play Puerto Rico tomorrow.
Okay.
And then on Thursday starts bracket play. So.
Okay.
These girls are ready.
Plenty more softball to be had. I know there's a big game. We want you to beat Texas, mess with Texas. The Cranston National Budlong Little League girls under 14 softball. We wish you all the best in the World Series.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Keep it coming.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I'll let you go play the game, and we'll let you go here. So we're going to sign off from out in Washington, and we'll be right back with our next guest here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center.
Go East.
Thank you.
Good job, girls.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for joining us for the 4 o'clock show. We just caught up out on the West Coast with the Cranston National Budlong Little League girls softball under 14 team in the World Series. Now we're going to go inside the Beltway. Jennifer Lawless down in D.C. Going to talk some politics. Thanks for joining us today, Jennifer.
Of course.
Lots going on as usual, even in the height and heat of summer. Plenty to talk about. Want to kick off by talking about recent reports from North Korea. There have been some intelligence reports from satellite images that it looks like North Korea might be moving ahead with some more military development. What's the talk been down there, and is this a surprise?
It's not a surprise because right after Donald Trump met with Kim Jong-un, there were suggestions that this was what was going to happen and that nothing was really going to come of the meeting. No concrete steps had been agreed upon. And so, I mean, I think the big issue now is that this is consistent with coming off of meeting with Vladimir Putin, another international relations failure. And so back to back, this suggests that Donald Trump, who pegged himself as the great negotiator, met with 2 of the most dictatorial heads of state there are and managed to extract not only nothing, but might have actually caused escalation on the Korean Peninsula. So, you know, I don't think this is a good day for the Trump administration, although the information itself is probably not that surprising.
And so what do we expect now even to come out of the Trump administration? Again, having met with Kim Jong-un and having had these discussions, do we expect the president to, you know, either get more information as to what these images are leading to? You know, how does this impact U.S.-North Korean relations now?
Well, I think it certainly is going to entail a lot of additional intelligence gathering and surveillance because it's too dangerous to make assumptions if we're not 100% sure what we're actually seeing there. But it does probably bode poorly for any additional talks that Kim Jong-un might have been interested in. It also politically is a feather in the Democrats' cap, and actually several Republicans also who did not think that meeting with the Korean leader was a good idea in the first place. And this sort of gives them credence when they make that statement again in the future.
So let's stay on the topic of, if you will, developments in arms and the discussions about this 3D gun printing. Now, folks have known about this for a while. It's been out there, but we've seen some legal movement both at the state and federal level about trying to even begin to address this, and all of a sudden now it's in the hot seat in terms of legislators paying attention to it, again, both at the state and federal level. What's the take down there? I mean, this is really kind of the Wild West.
It is the Wild West, and the big question is going to be to what extent do gun control advocates and the NRA fight over this as well? I mean, the whole thing is kind of crazy, right? You can print online, you can upload and then get online detailed descriptions that tell you exactly how to 3D print a gun. And, you know, this is something that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, nobody would have possibly anticipated in the entire gun control debate. And so it just demonstrates the way that technology is a moving target, and it's moving the frontier into a completely unanticipated direction. My bet is that we're going to see the usual suspects fall down on both sides, and they'll align the way that they typically do. The thing that's a little bit scarier about this is that nothing is to stop somebody at this point from downloading those blueprints and doing God knows what with them.
You know, there's a lot of discussion about other things that people can get from the internet, of course, making pipe bombs and things of that nature as well. But is this a different debate because it is guns? And you know, we talk about sort of the rudimentary nature of what they look like now, but we've seen the proliferation of technology. Is it apples to apples, or is it really apples to oranges in terms of other techniques that folks can, again, learn for purposes of inflicting harm?
I think it's apples to oranges, frankly, because there have been a lot of restrictions placed on, or attempted restrictions placed on, depending on where you live, gun sales. And so this is a loophole that is not a kind of loophole that anybody would have ever expected. It's a huge crater, right? And so, you know, yes, pipe bombs are awful. Yes, you can download instructions to do all sorts of terrible things from the internet, but there aren't organizations and movements already staking out positions on both sides regarding those kinds of things. And so I think that's what's generating additional attention here, as well as proposed legislation.
And so let's talk a little bit now, perhaps, about Rudy Giuliani making some comments in the press recently. Does anyone know what Rudy's going to say?
No, I mean, he's my new favorite person on television. Unfortunately, it's as though I'm watching a sitcom and nothing is really supposed to be that funny. You know, I think that Seth Meyers put it really well the other night. I was watching and he said, you know, the only thing, it used to be that when you said something on TV, that was an automatic check that you weren't going to be able to lie about it 10 minutes later or 10 days later. And the Trump administration has no care for that, right? And so Giuliani, who even just a few weeks ago was saying that it was not a terrible thing for Michael Cohen to have his office raided and for Michael Cohen to release these tapes because there was nothing on them that was incriminating and he's a good guy and he's honorable and he'll tell the truth, has now done a complete 180 and has said that everybody knows that Michael Cohen has been a liar for his entire life. And so, you know, this is a situation where the administration continues to double down on things that are not true, continues to completely flip its positions, and so far has not really borne the brunt of that flip-flopping. And so I don't even know what to think. You know, under ordinary circumstances, I would say that this could come back to bite the administration and Giuliani in particular. But if we've learned anything in the last year and a half, it's that these are not normal circumstances.
Speaking of flip-flopping, taking very different positions, let's talk about the president's tweet about the Koch brothers.
So the president now obviously thinks that they're losers in Republican politics and don't exert much influence, and I think he's sorely mistaken. We'll see what happens, but you know what Donald Trump has been able to do is create a brand for himself that's somewhat distinct from the Republican Party brand. The problem for him is that as we head into the midterm elections, while there are a handful of candidates in very, very conservative or Trump-like districts where an endorsement from him could help, there are also a lot of Republicans running in pretty establishment districts where support from the Koch brothers, but not Donald Trump, might actually help. And pitting yourself against them at a time when the Republicans are likely to lose the House and are going to be having to fight pretty hard to hold the Senate seems like a pretty precarious political position. But again, under normal circumstances, this wouldn't happen. We don't live in normal circumstances anymore.
Okay, so speaking of not living in normal circumstances and people who might have an inside glimpse into the White House, Bob Woodward coming out with a new book about the Trump White House. I'm assuming this is not The Fire and the Fury.
This is not Fire and Fury. This one, if I were in the White House, I would be very, very concerned about, because Bob Woodward has a reputation of being a meticulous fact checker, of being very, very responsible as a journalist and as a reporter, and of sourcing all of his information according to very traditional journalistic standards and norms. And so it's very unlikely that any bombshells that come out in that book can automatically be dismissed as not true. He doesn't have the reputation for extending the truth, and he doesn't have a reputation for being a liar. He also doesn't have a reputation for being histrionic or self-involved. So all of the
just describing Michael Wolff?
Right. So all of the traditional assaults and tweets and sort of criticisms that the administration tends to launch on critics are going to probably fall flat. So, I mean, I'm very interested in reading the book. I don't think that it'll be as juicy as Michael Wolff's, but it's probably a little bit more true.
Do you have it in pre-order?
No, not yet. I'm busy. You know, I'm moving.
Heading to UVA for a chaired position on the professor staff there. Let's just tack a little bit here to Rhode Island, Jennifer, because I do want to pick your brain. The second quarter finance reports are due today, and we've seen numbers coming out from campaigns, and we do know that Governor Gina Raimondo's campaign is on track during the four-year cycle to raise over $7 million for her effort. You know, will money really decide the governor's race here?
Money matters because it determines the extent to which you can run a credible campaign, and it determines how much time you can spend on TV and how many mail pieces you can get out and how many volunteers you can have. That said, you don't need that much money to win the governor's race. And so, you know, at some point, I think you hit diminishing returns. And so that amount of money certainly signals front-runner status. And that's important, especially because that number is going to be in every single story written about or every single news segment that's covering the campaign. But I think that, you know, you could run a solid gubernatorial race in Rhode Island for probably $2 or $3 million. And so if if her opponents either in the primary or the general election are able to raise that kind of money, I'm not sure that they should feel so daunted by the 7 itself.
I mean, back in 14, we did see Bob Healy. I think he said he spent $23. You know, got a big chunk of that protest vote. I mean, do you expect to, when all the chips fall, that we will see sort of a protest, sort of anti-establishment votes in this election here?
It depends, because in part it depends on whether her opponents can sufficiently frame themselves as anti-establishment. Right, and so a protest vote for a candidate that runs every single election cycle and spends $23 is a little bit different than a protest vote for a candidate that's hoping to raise several $1 million and be a viable opponent in the primary, or a long-term mayor of a large city in the state, right? I mean, in some ways, these are establishment people themselves, and so, you know, I think it's going to be unclear to what extent the anti-establishment vote feels that they have a credible place to go.
Well, as always, appreciate being able to pick your brain as to what's going on inside the Beltway and get your take as to what's taking place up here in Rhode Island. Jennifer Lawless, down, soon to be at UVA. We appreciate your taking the time to Skype in.
My pleasure.
Okay, thanks. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. I'd like to welcome in a familiar face, Mike Stenhouse with the Rhode Island Center for Freedom and Prosperity. Thanks for joining us today. It's your kind of show. It's politics and World Series. We had the Cranston National Budlong Little League girls under 14 softball team. They split the first 2 games. They're playing Texas this afternoon. We got them to Skype in here. Went down to the Beltway to talk with Jennifer Lawless, but you want to talk both national and local politics, and this is in light of the recent development that second quarter 4.1% GDP growth, and you said that this is making the case for more conservative policies.
Yeah, a lot of people are trying to poo-poo this because it's Donald Trump. To me, it has nothing to do with Donald Trump. It has to do with free market, cutting taxes, cutting regulations, opening up our energy possibilities, even though it's fossil fuels. And there's great lessons to be learned there, and it's very frustrating to see in our state that nobody seems to recognize that. Most of the candidates, in fact, we saw in the paper today, the governor is adopting a progressive agenda. She has a progressive challenger, and the Republican and other candidates are saying nothing about it. I don't think people understand that the progressive agenda wants to go in completely the opposite direction that the federal government is going. The federal government is showing, and again, remember, it's not just the GDP growth. We've had a lot of Obama supporters or progressives say, well, Obama had higher than that 3 or 4 quarters. But he never had the lowest unemployment rate across all demographic groups in the history. He never had the highest participation rate in labor. He never had rapidly increasing manufacturing jobs. He never had, personal incomes rising like they are now. He never had business and consumer confidence at all times high like we have now. This GDP was just one in a series of good signs. But yet our state seems to want to go in the opposite direction. They want more government control, more mandates, more taxes, more centralized planning, where the federal government is freeing up the great American spirit, and the results are showing. It's very frustrating.
So from a purely economic standpoint, you just made the case for why you argue for the conservative policies, but is it the intertwining of politics and economics that, especially during an election year here, that you think there's hesitancy amongst some of the candidates? So Joe Trillo, for instance, we know is a ardent Trump supporter, but from the Republican side, to try to balance, walk that fine line that we see GOP candidates across the country walking.
There's no need to walk the line. Again, on the Democrat side, just think you've got, in the lieutenant governor race, you've got a clear progressive against a clear moderate. Yet the moderate won't stand up for moderate Democrats, won't criticize the far left extreme wing of his party. You've now got a governor that's given in to the far left. So you've got 2 progressive candidates now running on the Democrat ticket. Now on the Republican side, none of the major candidates want to say anything about that. They just want to talk about little minutia stuff, whether it's corruption or whether it's campaign finance and this or that, or minor little things.
But is it the Trump fear factor?
Big. Yeah, it is. Well, it's a Trump fear factor. It's a fear of upsetting the progressive left, who are very loud and petulant, and the media that supports them, to be frank. But that's no way to live life, is afraid of everything. Go if you know something is right, if you stand for something, stand for it and fight for it. But nobody here will fight for principle.
So let's talk a little bit again with the center being the free market think tank that it is. What's your take on Trump tariffs?
Well, I think it's just nothing more than a negotiating tactic. I don't think Trump believes in tariffs and restricted trade, but he's trying to get China, the European Union, Canada, Mexico to change their tariffs. So he's playing hardball with them.
This is gamesmanship.
And we've already seen that, I think, with the European Union. He played hardball with them. They've blinked, and apparently they're going to be reaching a free market, fair trade deal. So I think it's nothing more than a negotiating tactic. It's unusual. Blows people's heads up. I get that. I see all these free market economists making it's a 2 or 3 month or 6 month thing that's not going to hurt our economy that much, especially when you consider what the prize is at the end. If you can use that tactic to get these other countries to reduce their tariffs on us, our workers, our consumers will be better off in the long run.
And what do you have to say to those who point to this and say, but the debt, but the burgeoning debt that we are taking on, these tax cuts to the wealthy, and sort of the grand scheme of where the country is fiscally?
Well, they're not tax cuts to the wealthy, first of all. It's the wealthy who are crying, with these SALT taxes in states like New Jersey, Rhode Island, New York. So these were corporate tax cuts, and middle class tax cuts. I wish the tax cuts on individuals were more. But these were clearly economic stimulus tax cuts to get the economy moving again, the corporations and all that, and it appears to be working. But again, nobody here will admit it because they're afraid of anybody mentioning the T word, the Trump word. I can't, again, it doesn't have to be about Trump. Make it about conservative policies, free market policies, the same policies we've been talking about. We commented at the end of the legislative session, what a waste. We predicted back in December, our center predicted that every state would see windfall revenues because of the federal tax cuts. And guess what happened? We had $130 million of windfall revenues. Now, we would have liked to have seen those taxes get returned to the people, get returned to the corporations who are paying them. Instead, this General Assembly and this governor decided to spend all that money. So again, Rhode Island is, we're the ocean state, but we keep catching the wave and going against the grain. The national tide is moving towards free economics, open markets, more transparency, less government control, yet Rhode Island wants to keep going the other direction. And you can't find one political leader with the courage to stand up and say something about it.
And what do you have to say to those two, again, with this rapid economic growth that could be approaching bubble status, that there could be a recession looming on the horizon? You've heard folks saying that as well.
Yeah, I think if there's recessions, it's because of, it's often not the economy, but it's a factor within it. I think college debt is a potential bubble. We've definitely overpriced colleges. And again, when we give out all these loans and we encourage people to get loans, go to college, it creates this bubble. And that could pop. I don't know what other bubbles there are out there, but hey, listen, we've been going at an unprecedented rate. Something could pop, but I don't think that the stock market is not an indicator of economic theory or philosophy. So markets can go up and down even if you're in a progressive or a free market conservative economy.
So what's the center going to be focusing on in the next 6 months as we approach another General Assembly session? Again, being not a political entity, if you will, more policy focused. What's the next 6 months hold?
I think we're evaluating right now what we're going to do in a post-Janus world, the Supreme Court case. We were outraged, to tell you the truth, at the governor's statement where she wanted to protect the contact information of government workers because she didn't want them to understand what their new rights are.
We discussed this last time you were in.
We think, well, we talked about what would happen, but now we are seeing the governor and other politicians and unions trying to hide from government workers what their rights are. We don't care what they decide, but we think they should know what their rights are, what the implications of this decision or that decision are. So we are seriously considering whether we're going to do some kind of public awareness campaign to inform workers, because we know the government's not going to tell them, at least not this government. We know the union bosses aren't going to tell them, and we think every government worker deserves to know what their rights are, and we trust the decisions they make, whether that's to stay in the union or not.
Now, I have to imagine this is a conversation taking place at both the board level locally, but also looking to see what other states around the country are doing to address the situation.
Well, this has happened actually in other states, because a lot of states have, this ruling was essentially right to work for government workers, right? Well, other states have gone full right to work, and we know in other states that when public awareness campaigns have been put forth, that people seem to say, I got to really question whether my union is providing me the value that I want, whether my union is taking my dues and fees and putting it towards campaigns or policies or individuals that I support or don't support, and then make a decision from that. So I think workers need to be aware. Other states have shown that when these awareness campaigns happen, workers are appreciative of having that information.
And so when do you expect to make this decision? Is this just a factor of time and money for the center as to how much you're going to invest in this sort of public awareness?
Yeah, it's not a one-time thing. We can start a program. We've already raised some money. We need to get to, I won't mention figures, but we need to get to a critical point. We may partner with some national groups that have some infrastructure that we can use, so we don't have to create the wheel ourselves. So I would say before the end of August, we'll decide whether we're going to get something started or not.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that. But again, in light of the recent numbers coming out for the national economy and the center making the case for conservative policies, wanted you in here. Anything else you want viewers to know in light of where we stand here at the end of July?
Well, viewers are voters, and we've got primary elections coming up in not too long. What, about 5-6 weeks, and then the general election in 8 or 9 weeks. Again, it's what we've talked about. That if you're a Democrat, especially, all Democrats are not the same now, right? Right. You have this extreme left progressive wing, and you've got the more moderate Kennedy wing, and you should look and find out if you're in your district, your senator or representative, there's a race, or in the governor or in the lieutenant governor race, you should know who the progressive is and who the moderate is, if there is that distinction, and vote accordingly. But just don't pull that D lever expecting they represent your values, because there's a wide rift between the left and the center when it comes to Democrats.
And we see the GOP as well, again, towing national politics as well as talking about as to where the GOP stands here in terms of,
there's
again,
rifts in the Republican Party too.
There's rifts everywhere. But wanted you to come in, again, these numbers coming out, that 4.1%, just being one of them from the second quarter for the GDP growth. Would like to, as always, welcome you for coming in. I'm sure that we will talk soon, and we'll welcome our next guest here in just a moment.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you. Okay, thanks. Let's go around. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for joining us for the 4 o'clock show. We had softball, we had politics, and now we've got the business of fashion. I'd like to welcome in a regular Jim Fortier with Blueprint 5. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it's such a pleasure.
It's July 31st. You were in the height of summer fashion
Yes.
at the moment.
Yes.
But heaven knows the fashion industry is always looking at the next season.
Yes, we are.
And we're going to talk men's fall fashions, and you've got a few. You've got one on the mannequin behind us here. But let's just start before we even go into the clothing. What are you stocking up with at Blueprint 5? What are we going to see on the well-dressed man this fall?
So this year is, it's all about the beautiful tweed fabrics. It's going, taking a step back to the classics, but modernizing them just a little bit. In other words, you're taking a beautiful gray flannel suit, which I've brought with me, and maybe doing it in a little bit more modern silhouette, maybe doing it in a peak lapel as opposed to a notch lapel like this, just giving it a little bit more life and a little bit more zest by just tweaking it that way.
And so what's the inventory at Blueprint right now? Is it 50-50 with the folks who want to still find a summer shirt but are itching to get into the fun fall fashion?
It's not 50-50. Fall's coming in every day now because Italy has shipped already because they close in August, those lucky Italians.
Are they all going on vacation? Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
You're like, I know, I've got all the stuff.
Like we should be right now. But so there's some fall in, which is great. I love having fall in the store. There's some trousers, there's some suits, there's some sweaters. But we're still 100, almost 100%, summer, because it's still the dog days of summer of August. There's bathing suits and shorts and t-shirts and great casual pants and jeans and everything that you need for summer. So that's still all there. But we are getting the fall in right now, which I like because it's, making it tasty.
Start getting excited. Do you have the pumpkin spice yet?
That's not going to go that far. Please.
So let's start talking about some of the items that you brought in for us. As you said, taking a spin on the classics, giving it some updates. This, for instance.
So this is definitely a spin on the classics, and I don't know if I'm going to be in shot or not, but so this is a beautiful woolen cashmere sweater from Cividini. It's a quarter zip sweater. It's got pulls at the top, and it's got pulls at the bottom for, to draw it in. But what I love about this is what's really unusual is this cool nylon hoodie that's on the back of it. So it's a sweater that's a hoodie, very different, very unusual. You won't see this anywhere else, I don't think, in the area. No one else has this line, and it's absolutely fantastic. I'm going to step up here for a quick second.
Okay.
And I'm going to pull this bad boy off because underneath we have an amazing sweater. This is cotton and wool, and if you feel this, this is like, there's almost nothing there. It's super, super light, super, super comfortable. You can wear it actually now.
I was going to say, this is a nice transition piece.
Yes, it's a beautiful transition piece. 100% made in Italy, super, super soft, super classic, double zip, love it, love it, love it. Navy, so, a lot of guys like navy, but this blue trim on the inside.
I was going to say, how much do you see that? I see it all the time, those just tiny little subtle accent trim. Like, trim is so big. It's not just the color, it's the secondary color.
It is the secondary color.
It could even be the zip itself.
It's just those attention to details, that's what we're about. Just the little tiny things that make you go, oh, that guy thought about what he was buying. Yeah.
And what's this material?
This is wool and cotton.
Okay.
But it's a very fine wool.
Is it breathable?
Oh yeah. Can't you smell it? Can't you smell it? Can't you feel it breathing now?
I can feel it. I can feel it breathing.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have other items you want to put on the mannequin?
No.
Okay.
I'm just going to show you things.
Keep bringing stuff over.
I'm going to bring stuff over. So this is one of the lines that we have in for fall already. I'm going to come a little closer.
Oh, is this houndstooth?
This is a. She's so fashion smart. This is a great little yellow and black houndstooth. And you can feel this is just like a brushed cotton for fall.
Oh, it's very soft.
And it's got stretch.
Ooh, I love stretch.
Yeah.
Stretch is very forgiving.
So do my customers, because it is very forgiving. Hides a lot of sins, gives you a lot of comfort, and this particular line, this is Masons from Italy. We're the only shop in Rhode Island to carry Masons. These are in now. These are going to sell out. These are because they're on the table and guys are grabbing them already.
They've clearly got the Italian little label on them. Yeah. So how'd you come in with to this line? Is it the shows in New York? Is it going to Italy? Where do you get your Italian base?
Well, I get the Italian base from just my experience. And I just got back from New York last Thursday for buying for spring of next year.
Yes, you gotta buy.
You gotta buy. I'm buying already. So these are lines that you have. If you're in the business, you should be aware of. And when you go into a showroom like this, you just buy it. And then what happens is you go into a showroom that has that, and they'll add something new. Like they also have in this particular showroom a beautiful line from Japan that are all Japanese fabrics, Japanese pants, made in Japan, that we'll be getting this fall as well. So it's all a matter of exploring and finding new things. That's the best part of my job.
I love talking fashion and I love talking business. I mean, how it's like any retailer dealing with inventory. You get someone who comes in. I mean, how many of these pants do you have? And then do you have the ability of someone, or is it, can you order more or not?
Certain things I can order more. So let's take this particular pant. This is not. I'm not unable to get more. This is something that when I ordered it last January. What they get for orders from guys like me and other stores around the country, that's what they cut in this particular fabric.
Okay.
They have other things that they do stock, but this particular thing, this is very particular. So I probably have 6 pair of this, and there's 6 pair of something else, and 6 pair of something else, and already these are disappearing.
And when they go, they go.
And that's it. And then we'll always get more things in, but that's I like to keep it limited because it keeps it exclusive and it keeps it. Rhode Island's a very small state. I don't want to have 2 guys at the same party walking in with the same pair of pants, so we try to avoid that whenever possible.
So I see, I spy a tie.
So
or is it, you want to show the full with the jacket?
Well, I would like to, but the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about this.
Ooh.
So this is exactly what I was talking about just a moment ago. This is a beautiful flannel. Now I know it feels very heavy because it's about 1,000 degrees in this room. So right now it feels very heavy. It feels like a bearskin rug, but it's actually a beautiful, soft Italian flannel. And what I love about this is any guy can wear this suit. And from a few feet away, it looks like a solid, so it's very subtle. But what we did was we did this with a very soft shoulder. There's almost no shoulder pad in here, so it's going to fit on his body better. It's going to sit on his body as opposed to it raising above him.
Do you see that a lot more? Do you see a lot more deconstructed jackets?
This isn't totally deconstructed. I do sell a lot of deconstructed jackets. That's a great point. But this is not completely deconstructed. There is some construction in here.
Construction. Yeah.
But it's light, and it still looks better on than these giant shoulder pads that you have seen for many, many years. And what we did with this lapel is we did this in a peak lapel, which gives it a little bit more youthful, a little bit more forward, a little bit more of a fashion feel, for lack of a better word. I'm in love with this. You can wear this with a white shirt, a blue shirt, a pattern shirt, a solid shirt. You can wear this with anything. So what we did was...
Will we be seeing Jim 48 outfitted in this come November?
No, I have something else coming though. So what I did was I paired it with this. This is gorgeous. Ooh. So this is our shirt line from Italy. This is private label. This is all. I select all the fabrics, design the shirt. It's made in Italy just for us. This is something we work very, very hard on. And this particular piece of neckwear here is one of the oldest neckwear manufacturers in Italy. Oh, wow. They're from Milan, and it's called Nicky. We're the only store in Rhode Island to have it, and their neckwear tends to be non-traditional, but still conservative.
I was just going to say,
yeah.
a little fun.
A little fun, and that's what...
Just enough whimsy.
Just enough whimsy, just enough, that's what Blueprint 5 is about. Just enough whimsy, just enough so that it's not so traditional that you feel like you're getting something that you've always seen before, but that's a little updated and a little bit fresh feeling, so I really love this combination.
This is lovely. So let's talk about the brown and the blue tie. I mean, can you wear this really with anything? What color schematic would you?
You can wear this with navy, you can wear this with gray, you can wear this with blue. There really isn't a lot. You probably can't wear it with black.
That's the only thing that would probably be them.
But this is really beautiful and lush and simple, and it's not in your face, but there's enough of a pattern there that it's interesting, and I just am in love with these. I opened up all these ties, and I'm just so excited.
Well, what's your take on, haberdashery, if you will, like the mixing the prints? Some people do it, some people don't. And what's your thought on that?
It depends on the customer.
Okay.
I prefer, like, this is a pattern tie, and I would put it with that suit that we just looked. I would put it with the solid. I would put it. I'm all about pattern on pattern on pattern. It happens to be a very sophisticated way of dressing. You just have to know how to do it. You have to know that you want to have different size patterns. You don't want to have the same exact size. You maybe want to have different patterns. You might want to have a plaid, and then you might want to have a dot.
Do you have customers who ask you about that?
Yeah, of course.
Like they like a piece here, you like a piece there. Are you pretty honest?
I'm very honest. To a fault. To a fault.
That's fine, that shirt.
Not happening. No, I've actually put, and then that's funny because I will put people in clothes that I think they're going to look good on, and somebody will put something on. I say, you got to take that off. It just doesn't work. I would rather do that and be honest with them then have them leave the shop thinking that they look great when in reality they don't.
Yeah.
That's my reputation on the line.
That is true.
I don't want to lie.
That's true. So lots of fun fall pieces, as you said, all coming into the store. Anything else you want folks to know looking ahead towards fall?
Well, there's a couple of things I want to talk about. First of all, like I said, I just got back from New York, so that's amazing. It's crazy, beautiful things. The second thing is we're still running a Supreme pop-up shop in the store until probably the mid or third week of August. That'll be over soon, but it's still exciting if you know somebody who's into Supreme or Bape or Yeezys or Off-White. Those brands are still at the store. We're the only store in the area within miles that has the kind of product available that you can actually come in and take a look at. So that's exciting. But the most important thing that's happening at the shop this year is the introduction of this particular line. So Mauro Blasi is a young man whose father was one of the 5 original Neapolitan tailors, and his father's name was Angelo. And Angelo unfortunately passed away, but Mauro has gone on to keep this company alive on his own and put his own label on it. So what you're looking at here is something very unusual, because this suit in this very expensive Loro Piana fabric is all made by hand.
Wow.
So the buttonholes are all made by hand. This lapel, the pick stitching is all done by hand. Everything that's done inside along here is all done by hand.
Now, what's this material?
This is 100% wool.
It's 100% wool, but it's got a very light feel. Almost, I don't want to say it feels cotton, but the PK is just it's so unbelievably light.
Yeah, this is a Loro Piana fabric. This is a handmade suit. This is very, very expensive. Now, why is this important to me in the store and Rhode Island? This gentleman is probably one of the 5 premier Italian tailors from Naples, Italy, and you can get him exclusively at Blueprint 5, and we're having a function in October where he's actually coming over from Italy. We're going to have a trunk show event for 2 days. You can meet him, you can get measured by him, you can select fabrics, you can have anything you want made. He'll make anything for you. He'll be measuring you in the shop for an absolutely perfect fit. If you like real Neapolitan tailoring, this is the place to be. So I'm super excited about this.
So I know I was asking about the other jacket. I mean, how many of these suits are we going to see Jim Fortier in this year?
So I am having a jacket made. When I saw him last week in New York, he measured me for a sport jacket, which he'll be bringing in
And
October.
you'll be wearing that when you have him in the...
I won't be wearing it because when he brings it over, he'll be coming. We'll be doing a fitting.
Oh, you'll be doing a fitting there.
We're doing a fitting at the store. So, but probably he'll end up leaving it, and my tailor will probably finish that off.
I have experienced your tailor firsthand.
Tony, yes you have. Oh, I forgot your umbrella. You left your umbrella at my shop. So this is really exciting, and it just continues to get better at Blueprint 5. We're coming into our 4th year now, which I'm shocked. And we try to keep doing it better, try to make things better, try to get better product, deliver better service all the time, and this is certainly top notch. This is some of the best in the world. So really.
So I have to ask you, because you just came from New York, and
Yes.
it's amazing. It's just how the industry has worked for years. But to the average layperson, you've already looked ahead. You've put the glasses on. You've seen into spring.
Mm-hmm.
Any little hints as to what spring has in store?
Spring, I haven't figured that out yet where we're going, but a little more whimsy, a little less serious, especially with spring. Super light jackets. When I say super light, I mean completely unconstructed. Josh will love them. No shoulder pad. Jackets made with that have the fabric itself has been printed. There's no construction in it, and there's stretch. So they're super, super comfortable. It's like wearing nothing at all. We've got a couple of new lines coming in next spring that I think are going to be absolutely fabulous. So yeah, there's more to come.
Blueprint 5 continuing to grow, but again, some amazing products, it looks like, here for the fall. It's just how the fashion works. It's July 31st. I'm sure there's kids itching to get back to school.
Oh,
and
I'm sure. Somewhere.
And there's men looking for very amazing fashions that are going to be at Blueprint 5 and starting to come in. So.
Sure.
We appreciate, as always, you're taking the time to come in and give us the cutting-edge take on men's fashion here in Rhode Island from around the world. Jim Fortier, thanks for taking the time to come in.
Thanks, Kate. Always a pleasure.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a minute to wrap up here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for joining us this Tuesday afternoon. It has been a busy one. Rachel Nunes was up at 3 o'clock with 5 guests, I believe, talking tech and more. 4 o'clock usually kicks off with politics, but we tacked over to Washington, where the Cranston National Budlong Little League girls softball under 14 team is actually playing right now. We caught them in right before warm-ups as they're going to be playing Texas. They've split 2 games so far. They've got another against Puerto Rico this week in pool play, but they'll be there all week out in Washington. We want to wish the girls of summer well from here in Rhode Island. Of course, Jennifer Lawless, UVA professor, talking politics between developments in North Korea, what Rudy Giuliani's been saying to the press, what we can possibly expect from Bob Woodward's new book about the White House, and more. Speaking of the White House, we did have Mike Stenhouse with the Rhode Island Center for Freedom and Prosperity in to talk about recent numbers about the economy's growth. He was making the case for conservative policies. And then finally talking about the business of fashion with Jim Fortier with Blueprint 5. It's July 31st, but of course, fall fashions are filling up the stores already. He gave us a little bit of the insights as to what to expect from Blueprint 5 and men's fall fashion here in the studio. So thanks for tuning in. Be sure to catch us on GoLocalProv.com and on Facebook. We look forward to seeing you back here in studio tomorrow on the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel.